correspondent. Let's take it on still more. Paul Lubeck is a consultant with the Ministry of Budget and Planning in Nigeria's Kano State. He's also director of the Center for Global, International and Regional Studies at the University of Santa Cruz in the United States. Mr. Lubeck, welcome to the program. Thanks for your time. I just want to get a measure of the challenge facing Good Luck Jonathan, and it seems pretty substantial, doesn't it? Would you say, first of all, that Boko Haram's support is growing, and if so, why?
The support for Boko Haram is rooted in enormous poverty, misgovernment in a region of approximately 60 million people in the northern Muslim states. They have the highest population growth rate, 7.4 children per woman, the highest malnutrition rates for children, the lowest vaccination rates. These are staggeringly low health statistics. The problem for Jonathan is that he needs security sector reform. The emergence of Boko Haram arises directly from the brutal suppression of an insurrection in Maiduguri and the murder of 3 of the leaders of the sect, the Boko Haram sect, which is a Salafist sect that is influenced by theories of Islamic governance from Saudi Arabia. After the murder of their leadership and the elimination, the extermination of followers, they withdrew and then began an insurrection. This is a Salafist Islamic insurrection against Jonathan, but also against the political elite governing northern Nigeria, which is fragmented and it has not delivered health care, education, living standards, water, or economic and social security.
Could I just ask you this? Is it absolutely transparently clear that this is all about religious motives, that this requirement to bring in Sharia law across the country, across the Christian South, across the whole of Nigeria? Some people are saying that it could be just a cloak to convince the impoverished of the north to join the cause, to do the dirty work of Boko Haram, if you like, and that the reality is that all they really want is wealth and power.
I think the answer to that question is the Muslims of northern Nigeria have had Sharia law since 1500. There's only a 40-year period between 1960 and 2000 when they did not have criminal law. The movement led by Muhammad Yusuf called for the implementation of what he called true Sharia law. I'm not an advocate of Sharia law, but the Sharia law that was implemented between 2000 and 2002 was considered a failure by the majority of the population and is called political Sharia. Only women and poor people receive criminal punishments. The desire for Sharia law is real.
Okay. Yeah. What about the funding? What about the weapons? Where do they get their arms from? Who backs them?
The funding, they claim, their representatives claim, that they receive funding by bank robberies, but obviously they're getting support from locals. The weapons come from attacking police stations. If you look at from 2010 to the present, there's an increase in weaponry, an increase in tactics with bombs, eventually suicide bombings, use of suicide bombers, and that comes from using gas cylinders and explosives. The evidence for importing weapons has never been presented, but clearly the weapons can come from Chad, they can come from Niger, they can come from Libya. All of those are possible sources of weapons.
And of course, the US government is saying, as far as I know, the US government is saying that Boko Haram is collaborating with Al-Shabaab in Somalia.
The US government has never provided any public evidence, and we live in a world that is post-curveball. We have to be very careful about statements that are made without any evidence, and as a scholar and as journalists, we have to have some evidence before we accept that. I believe it's entirely possible that they have received training from either Al-Shabaab or from AQIM. But the overwhelming majority of the actors here are Nigerians that are focused on Nigerian issues. And it's a sideshow to internationalize this when the problem to be resolved is local.
All right, just to wrap
Nigeria.
this up, would you just take a view on you know, coming back to the first question, really, how difficult it will be for Good Luck Jonathan to nail this, especially given there is this view that our reporter was just talking about, that there are traitors within the military and within the government itself?
Jonathan suffers from an enormous lack of confidence, crisis of confidence. In the middle of this crisis with Boko Haram, after declaring a military emergency, he then increased the price of petroleum, which then created a whole set of protests against him. He has his people, the people around him, have very little knowledge of the North, the Northern Muslim societies and cultures. The Northern Muslim moderates all complain about the lack of representation of Northern Muslims in the security forces, and this is something he has to address. There needs to be reconciliation. He needs to bring people who are skilled in reconciliation. They need, and I believe they're already negotiating and have met with Boko Haram. By failing to pursue reconciliation and instead going to a hardline military intervention solution, they are only increasing the number of supporters. This is well known elsewhere in the world, and sadly it's occurring in northern Nigeria.
Paul Lubeck, it's been fascinating talking to you. We appreciate your perspective on all of this. Thanks very much indeed. That's Paul Lubeck from the University of Santa Cruz.
Thank you for inviting me.